Hey, welcome to our weekly coaching call. This is Dr. Mike. I'm going to jump on today and we're going to discuss a requested topic of how to get rid of Candida. All right, let's see. How to get rid of Candida is probably like one of my top 10 questions I get, and it's something that plagues every single person. It's going to plague every single person throughout their entire life, or I mean, not through entire life, but at one point in their life. Okay, and then the question is, can you actually cure it? Well, I don't know if you can actually cure it because Candida actually naturally lives in your gastrointestinal system and lives in your body. Okay, so and whenever something like this, and if we look at a lot of infections per se, like even pneumonia, E. coli, a lot of those are actually opportunistic infectious organisms. It's a hard word to say. So Candida actually naturally lives in your GI tract, and it's called an opportunistic infection because when conditions become favorable, then overgrowth happens. Kind of like, when bread becomes moldy, it's because the bread has favorable conditions for mold to grow. That's basically what an opportunistic infection is. So, this is a pretty gross picture of Candida. This is commonly known as thrush. Now, what happens a lot of time with patients is that your immune system will be at a lowered state, and when this happens, this is when Candida flourishes. What causes it is a lot of antibiotic use is a very common cause. So if you've been on a 10 to 21 day antibiotic regimen, you're going to have a lot of candidiasis, chronic stress, because chronic stress is an immunosuppressant. So any type of immunosuppressant, like a high carbohydrate diet, is an immunosuppressant. Diabetes, oral contraceptive use is also immunosuppressant, and immunosuppressive drugs, so like chemotherapy, will have flourishment of Candida. So this was the question that I got is, what is the correlation between Candida overgrowth, leaky gut, and internal inflammation in the organs due to Candida overgrowth? Can you discuss this, and what else besides the elimination diet can a person do to heal themselves? Great question. All right. We first got to look at how this all occurs. So a stressful event happens and the immune system drops and inflammation rises. Okay? Also, you get a state of hypoxia or decrease or lack of oxygen, which then turns into a lack of nutrient delivery. This then causes what's called intestinal dysbiosis, which is a fancy word for the balance of the microorganisms in your gut becomes out of balance. That's dysbiosis, which then allows Candida, which is naturally kept at bay, naturally lives there, but it's kept at bay when you have balance in the microbiome. But in a state of dysbiosis, Candida tends to flourish, which then causes a lot of inflammation because Candida produces a lot of its own toxins, which then induces inflammation. One, because the immune system's trying to react against it, but that's what happens there. And then when intestinal dysbiosis increases, you also increase a protein called zonulin. And what zonulin does is it increases the gut permeability. So does inflammation. So you get an increase in zonulin and an increase in inflammation that will further increase gut permeability, which will then create this vicious downward spiral of increased intestinal permeability, because then you go back, which it, gut permeability becomes another stressor, which further suppresses the immune system, creates more inflammation because undigested food material or any type of pathogens can now cross that gut barrier, which then creates more inflammation, and down and down and down and down you go. This is why we see a lot of chronic health issues starts here within the gut. So if you look at what does the research say? Well, it says that gastrointestinal Candida colonization promotes the sensitization against food antigens by affecting the mucosal barrier in mice. Basically saying Candida causes leaky gut. That's what the research says there. Because of inflammation. Okay. So who cares about all that stuff? You want to know what do we do about it, right? What do we do about all this stuff? First step is you got to address the cause. A lot of people want to skip this step, but they think that they're doing it. But you got to address the cause, which is antibiotics, the chronic stress, high carbohydrate diet, diabetes. You guys can read that. But the ones I want you guys to look at is chronic stress, diet, and antibiotics. Now, you may not be taking antibiotics, but the food that you're eating is probably high in antibiotics. So a lot of the foods, especially animal products, has injected antibiotics in it. And if it's being injected into the animal and you're eating the animal, you're getting the antibiotics. So, this is why I highly recommend doing antibiotic-free, hormone-free, grass-fed beef, pastured chicken, the stuff that doesn't have the added crap to it. This will help prevent you from having to deal with all the excess stuff, which will prevent you from dealing with Candida overgrowth. So once you got that addressed, you got to put out the fire and increase circulation. This is where fish oils come in. I prefer you guys get it from fish. And then if you don't, or you just can't stand eating fish, then you can supplement, But I prefer you getting it from the food first. Work on acid-base balance. A lot of people are way more acidic than they should be. Now the colon should be acidic, and this comes back down to balancing your pH levels. If your pH levels systemically is more on the state of alkalinity, about 7.365, then your colon will also be acidic. Okay, it's really weird. It's this inverse relationship. When you're alkaline, then gastrointestinal wise, you'll be acidic. So your stomach needs to be acidic, your small intestine tends to be more alkaline, and then your colon, large intestine, tends to be more acidic. Using stuff like molecular hydrogen, which will decrease inflammation as well. Proper breathing. I'm going to teach you guys how to do proper breathing techniques. There's a great book you guys should all have read, which is called The Oxygen Advantage. Teach you some basics about breathing. A lot of people don't breathe properly. You breathe too shallow. You're not getting enough oxygen into your system, and you're not actually holding on to enough carbon dioxide. So you got to breathe properly. A lot of people are shoulder breathers, what I call, rather than diaphragmatic breathers. And movement. You got to be moving. Sedentary lifestyle. It's kind of like a stagnant pond. You don't want to swim in a stagnant pond, right? You get all kinds of muck and algae and all that kind of stuff growing in there. Same thing with your body. Your body has a lymphatic system, which doesn't have its own pump. Its pump is the muscles. Muscles need movement. If you move your muscles, it pumps the lymphatic. Everybody's happy. Unless you want a stagnant lymphatic system that will become a breeding ground for all kinds of microorganisms. So you got to move. Third step is repair the gut barrier and then get rid of the Candida. This is where a lot of people start, actually, without doing the first two steps. Okay? So stuff like undesolenic acid, coconut oil, which has lauric acid and caprylic acid, these are antimicrobials that work really well to get rid of Candida. Sometimes people jump into antifungals, as far as like pharmaceutical antifungals, Flagyl, which causes more damage than it does, helping out. So I always try to start with stuff like undesolenic acid. I use Thorne Research SF722 that has really good undesolenic acid, clean undesolenic acid. Clove and oregano oil if you're into essential oils. Lavender oil is another good one, and then a good strain of probiotics, just to kind of get that microbiome back into balance. So this is pretty much the 3-step process to get rid of Candida and get everything back into balance. Hopefully you guys found this helpful, and stay tuned to next week. as I dive into another health topic that you guys are all talking about. It might be something along the lines of anxiety because that's been one of the highly requested ones. So stay tuned next week. We'll probably be talking about anxiety. All right, but till the next time, don't get into too much trouble, you guys. All right. Aloha.